The second major point to emphasize is that the embryo is human. It is formed from human material. It has 46 human chromosomes, and it has a fixed biologic destination. It will never differentiate into a June bug or into a pea pod. Furthermore, it will never simply be a human liver, a human heart, or a human earlobe. So it is not simply human tissue. It will only ever be a complete human being. Granted, it is a small human being, and it is at the beginning of the process of human development. It should be noted that the process of human development doesn't stop at birth. Human development never stops, it never arrests until death, when our bodies do finally rest, hopefully in peace. Third, in addition to being alive and human, the embryo is unique. The egg is maternal in origin, the sperm is paternal, 23 chromosomes from each parent, so the 46 chromosomes which make up the genetic code of the embryo are different from both the mother and the father. It is neither paternal nor maternal tissue within the womb of the mother. This small human being is a new human identity with its own and only its own potential. He or she is a new, unique human person from the moment of conception. In addition to these simple points that I've made, modern scientific examination has confirmed through biochemical, cell biology, genetic, and now 3D ultrasound studies that the embryo or fetus is a small human person. And I think the most appropriate technical medical jargon for a small human person that resides within the womb of its mother is a baby. There are zero medical and scientific voices that claim that babies' bodies are infused with a soul and actually transform from inanimate tissue to living little persons while passing through the birth canal. There is no magic fairy dust in the birth canal that brings life to inanimate tissue or products of conception. Thanks to modern genetics and embryology, we know that from the point of fertilization, the tiny nascent life is a complete growing human, and it has a full complement of the machinery characteristic and required of human life, and all operating at full steam. So, an abortion, whether chemical through administration of a lethal poison or surgical through mechanical dismemberment and decapitation, is scientifically the equivalent of murder, because what the abortion industry calls the product of conception is really a child. Abortion is a surgical procedure with a 100% infant mortality rate, although the overall procedural rate is higher than 100%, because unfortunately for a few particular procedures, it is 200%. Death is the most severe physical complication that women can suffer from abortion, and thankfully it is relatively rare. There are actually many maternal complications related to abortion. Fortunately, most of these serious complications are salvageable with more surgery. Other maternal complications of abortion can include lacerations and other trauma leading to infection, incomplete abortion, and life-threatening hemorrhage. We have no idea what the true rate of maternal death is for abortion. Clearly, it's different in different countries. Some population-based studies have suggested that the risk of maternal death from abortion is in fact equal to the risk of maternal death from live childbirth. Epidemiological studies have further demonstrated that maternal rates of breast cancer, suicide, and death from all causes continue to be elevated in post-abortive women compared with women who've had 0 abortions for up to 25 years following abortion. Again, increased breast cancer, suicide, and death from all causes for an additional 25 years. The incidence of future miscarriage and even divorce are markedly higher in post-abortive women. Interestingly, live births have been found to be protective in all of these measured endpoints. Today's pro-abortion culture of death truly is a real war against women and children, and its effects have been devastating to women, children, and families. Now I want to change course and discuss contraception, because it also harms men, women, children, and families, and it fuels the abortion industry. the way that contraception fuels abortion is that contraception never works as well in the real world conditions as it does in clinical trials. So when contraception fails, and it does very often in real world conditions, then the result, a baby, is deemed a failure. Places like Planned Parenthood are then happy to help by dismembering the infant and removing the inconvenient human remains. When contraception is used by real people in their real world lives, this is called typical use. The typical use failure rate of the oral birth control pill is 8.7%, meaning 8.7% of women using the pill as their primary method of contraception for a year will become pregnant in that year. The typical use failure rate of condoms is 17% per year, and this 17% failure rate per year is specifically for pregnancy. It's actually much higher than this for the prevention of sexually transmitted diseases like HIV. The typical use failure rate of the patch is 8% per year. The typical use failure rate of cohabiting teenagers using the pill is 48% per year. The typical use failure rate of cohabiting teenagers using condoms is 70% per year. Teenagers are about as good at taking the pill every day as they are at doing their homework every day. There is another way that contraception fuels abortion. It actually causes abortions, which often occur without the woman even knowing it, without the woman knowing that she has become a mother. The birth control pill is an abortifacient. The mini pill was introduced because so many young, childbearing age women developed blood clots, causing strokes, heart attacks, and deaths with the standard dose birth control pill. But as the mini pill's dosages of the hormones which prevent ovulation were decreased, breakthrough ovulation started occurring. There is a 2 to 10% incidence of breakthrough ovulation with the current doses of the mini pill. Think about that. Up to a 10% incidence of breakthrough ovulation. These eggs are often fertilized, thus initiating human life, which we said before does begin with conception. But then these new small human beings cannot implant in the endometrium due to the hormonal alteration of the endometrium. So women who use the mini pill as contraception are probably self-aborting often. Women who use IUDs as their main birth control mechanism self-abort even more frequently. So these are the ways contraception kills newly formed human beings. Contraception probably snuffs more newly conceived babies' lives than does abortion. Contraception has also increased the rate of abortion in every country where it has been introduced, with the exception of the communist Soviet bloc countries. This was because in the atheistic communist Soviet countries, abortion was the enforced primary method of contraception for 30 years before the birth control pill was invented. Besides being deadly for children, contraception is also very bad in many other ways for the adult women who use it. Contraception is associated with increased risks of STDs, increased rates of STDs, and now 1 in 5 Americans now has an incurable STD. Increased rates of unwanted pregnancy in single-parent homes. And again today, 42% of all American babies are born to unwed mothers. Increased rates of poverty, increased rates of breast cancer. Specifically, women who are on the birth control pill for 4 or more years before their first pregnancy have a 50% increased risk of breast cancer. Women who are on the pill from age 17 to 30 have a 400% increased risk of triple-negative breast cancer. Oral contraceptives have deleterious effects on the immune system and increase the risk that the human papillomavirus will cause cervical cancer. In Western society, the increasing rate of divorce over time has mirrored the increasing prevalence of contraception. First, contraception allows sex outside of marriages. This, of course, is bad for men, women, children, and our whole culture. Contraception also changes the whole dynamic and meaning of the sexual act. Our God, the Creator God, is an unconditional lover. The book of Genesis tells us He created men and women to be unconditional lovers. Before the fall, there was no embarrassment, no scorn, no dominance or manipulation between the sexes. After the fall and in the fullness of time, Jesus Christ was sent by the Father to return us to friendship with God and restore right relations with our fellow men and women so that we may have life and have it to the full. Praise be to God. Part of that ideal is for husbands and wives to be unconditional lovers. Contraceptive sex says that you want a short physical encounter, a short physical pleasure. What does non-contraceptive, natural sex say? The marital embrace, and that's a much nicer term, the marital embrace without contraception means I am giving my entire self to my beloved, a total self-giving. I give you my life, my beloved, and with you only will I share this. I love you so much that I want to make another you. Again, compare this with, I want a short physical pleasure with you. When the marital embrace says only, I want a short physical pleasure with you, this dramatically damages the bonds of matrimony and paves the way for single-sex marriage, for same-sex marriage. Today, between 42 and 46% of marriages in the U.S. and Great Britain end in divorce within 10 years. Fortunately, there is an alternative route. There is a method of spacing births called natural family planning, or NFP. This is not the rhythm method. Natural family planning, or NFP, uses the signs of a woman's cycle to let her know when she is fertile and when she is not fertile. It is extremely successful in helping couples achieve pregnancy if the time is right in their marriage, or avoid pregnancy if the time is not right in their marriage. In a study of 19,800 indigent women who wanted to avoid pregnancy, the pregnancy rate was less than 0.2%, less than 1/5 of 1% using NFP. These women were 1/3 Hindus, 1/3 Muslims, and 1/3 Christians, and they were taught NFP by St. Teresa of Calcutta's nuns. NFP costs nothing. It is effective, particularly in poverty-stricken areas. It has no side effects, and it grants couples considerable power to control when or when not to have children. The incidence of divorce among American couples who use NFP rather than contraception is less than 5%. So, in summary, contraception kills babies, harms women, and damages marriages. Its direct consequences are divorce and abortion, and together these three blights have nearly wrecked the fabric of our culture. Physically and spiritually safe and licit alternatives to contraception are natural family planning for married couples and abstinence for unmarried individuals. Please pass the word. Thank you all for being here and for your attention, and may the Lord grant you every blessing in Christ Jesus. Thank you.